on the Super Geeks page. That will be on YouTube.
I see the live on YouTube notification.
It is loading. Loading. And we are live on YouTube.
Woohoo!
Yay. Technical difficulties are so much fun.
No kidding. Awesome sauce.
You have a link for YouTube?
Yes.
We are live on YouTube.
Let me start recording. And record on this computer. We're recording. And let me get the link for YouTube.
You don't have to record. YouTube automatically lets us sit there at 720.
Link. Getting the link.
Want it, it's up to you.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm just letting you know. Listen, I'm just letting you know you don't have to record.
Oh.
There's no point.
Well, oh well, he'll be fine.
Sorry for the delay, folks.
We are live.
Yay!
All right.
What a night.
Friday the 13th into the 14th.
Yeah, the Friday the 13th curse lives on.
All right.
Okay, are we ready to go?
We are ready to roll. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to Super Geeks live stream. Sorry about the technical glitches. You can blame Facebook, which is, you know, the source of all evil in today's world. So
it is.
Welcome to our December 13th edition of the Super Geeks podcast. We've got a lot of great topics today, about 15 of them. We're trying to get through as many of them as we can. It was a busy week in sci-fi land and Super Geeks land, starting with some not so great news as we learned of the passing of several well-known Star Trek folk. Of course, we lost DC Fontana last week. This week, Rene Auberjonois, best known for his role as Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, passed away at age 80 from, I believe it was lung cancer. And outpouring of grief and memories all week so far on all over the interwebs. As Justin is putting up on the board right now, he was well known for a lot of things. He was on Benson. He was, I think, the butler on Benson. No, he was the governor's aide on Benson. And then he also played, what was the name of the colonel in Undiscovered Country?
Oh,
Colonel West.
Colonel West, right. Which I always thought was kind of weird because why would they have a colonel in Starfleet? Whatever.
It's probably a positional title.
Yeah, I guess, but it's
a lot of
not
people
a naval title, which, you know.
No, but Kirk described Starfleet as a... Sorry, George, go ahead.
It's just we have no other instance of an army title in Star Trek except on Deep Space Nine. Yeah, but Mako's is pre-Starfleet. I mean, pre-Federation. So
right. Well, one person's theory that he's technically a rear admiral, but the title of colonel is to show that he's in charge of ground forces.
Yeah,
kind of like how the position of Commodore today used to be an actual rank, but today it's a position instead of a rank.
The Army used to do that with corporal. During wartime, you have corporals, which is the E4, and there's specialists when there's no war going on. So titles and ranks often change.
But yeah.
So
for me, he was one of his most prominent roles for me was Robert House in Fallout New Vegas.
Oh yeah,
oh, really? I did not know he was in that. I saw him fairly recently. He performed at a special evening event at Star Trek Las Vegas just this past August, doing a bunch of dramatic readings along the Nav Visitor, which was very sweet. You know, the two of them were very dear friends, and they did I don't know, about an hour and a half set of, you know, they read poems. They recreated a couple of scenes from Deep Space Nine that they were both in. They you know, read some other passages from other plays back and forth to each other, and it was a really lovely and special evening, for which, by the way, I have oh no, we happened to be I was with Matt Miller from Trek Zone, who was also at Star Trek Las Vegas this past year, and we ran into this guy who happened to have extra tickets for this show, and he said, "These are VIP tickets, and I can't go. Do you want them?" So we got them, and so that's how we got in. It was a whole dinner and performance combination in one of the big ballrooms there at the hotel. And anyway, it was a beautiful performance, and I was sitting, not far from where they were performing, probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 feet. And he actually looked pretty good that night. And of course, None Obvious always looks great, but I'm sorry that was the last instance of his performances I ever got to see.
And probably the most famous role that he had that nobody really knew about, the chef from Little Mermaid.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah, that was
him. Yeah, that man, he was a working actor. He was an actor's actor.
Yeah,
Wasn't he also in
come up
Clue?
with my...
Okay, one of you go first. George.
Oh, I'm trying to remember, but wasn't he in the movie Clue? I could be wrong.
I don't recall that he was.
Yeah, I could be misremembering that. But yeah, so his role as Odo, of course, is the big Star Trek one, and he kicked ass in that one. So.
Oh
He
yeah,
was the original Father Mulcahy in MASH.
That's right, in the movie. And he was pretty good in that too. Of course, it has a much darker tone than the TV series ended up having, but it was still it was still a comedy. It was still dark humor, but a very edgy role the way he played it. And and then Marina Sirtis also lost her husband this past week, which was a shame. She announced it on Twitter.
Yeah.
It was the same day or the following day that we found out about Odo.
Yeah, I think it was the following day.
Yeah,
and then of course Robert Walker, who he did guest starring roles all over television, but is known in Star Trek for playing Charlie X in that first season episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Also passed away this week. So it was a brutal week.
Yeah. It coming pretty sadly. I mean, that's just horrible. We're losing so many this year.
Well, you got to remember too that a lot of these people didn't die young, except for Aaron Eisberg, and he had health problems his whole life. So I mean, there's always going to come a point when we start losing people, because I'm happy Sir Patrick's still going, but realistically, if he does 3 years of Picard or more, that could happen behind the scenes at any time. So I'm not to be negative about that, but it's like then you get people slightly younger, but eventually this is what happens. And sometimes
but the reality is that I mean, Marina Sirtis's husband was in his early 50s.
Right. Well, that's
so it's young or old, it's a specter that hangs over everyone.
It's a part of life, but it doesn't make it hurt any less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, we mourn their passing and wish good health for everyone else attached to Star Trek in the meantime. So that was the week. Moving on to our next topic. Still on Star Trek, 2 new short treks premiered this week, and an interesting set of animated shorts that came out. The Girl Who Made the Stars and Ephraim and Dot, both pretty short. I think under 10 minutes each. But what do we think? Who wants to start off?
Okay, start?
Yeah.
Okay. I almost didn't watch them, and because I've been in the hospital, and I was like, they're animated little things. They don't even look at you because they don't show you nothing but teasers. But I ended up loving Ephraim and Dot because it was cute, nice callbacks, homage to. I like the way that they did the whole Khan theme from when he first appeared in Space Seed to the Genesis planet going Kabooie in search for Spock. And then, they just did a lot
as
of
well
homage.
as the Reliant. There was that shot of the
Reliant attacking
going over
and
from
they
Wrath
also,
of Khan.
And then they kind of they kind of did a, almost like a collage of like showing you that he's been around the Enterprise during the Tholian Web and the Doomsday Machine and things like that, so that you knew he was that was kind of like his home at that point. And and that was kind of neat. Then we get to the girl who made the stars, and I was like, this would have been cute if it wasn't on a short Trek, but it was interesting, but it just didn't feel like something that was worthy of being a Star Trek short thing.
Why?
Because it just shows you. I just found it like a cute kid type story, like bedtime story from the father. I didn't feel like it had to be Michael Burnham and do it this way when they could have used more Trek stuff that to show us. But I mean,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Me either.
You don't get more Trek than the lead of one of the shows in Star Trek.
That was
I can sort of see people looking at it like when Kirk was young and something he did to get in trouble.
So it's okay for Kirk, but it's not okay for.
I have an
Michael
example
Burnham?
when it gets to be my turn.
I'm just going by the way I felt when I was watching it. That I just didn't. I thought it was cute, but I just didn't feel like it didn't feel like a Trek type story. But at the time I was.
I'll come back to complain about that in a little bit, because it drives me crazy when people say something doesn't feel like Trek, because Trek is more than just one thing.
I never said I liked the examples of like when Kirk and JJ stuff. I don't really care what they did as kids and stuff. That's just me. It had nothing to do with her being Michael Burnham or someone else. I wouldn't want to watch Benjamin Sisko's 11 years old and he gets in trouble and the Starfleet officer reprimands him and he gets inspired. That kind of a story, just, it's there. It's good for back.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with Star Trek. That just has to do with your personal traits about not caring about these characters when they were kids, which is a totally different thing. Joe, you had something to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
That one felt like that's like the genesis of Star Trek. Like that is the foundation of what Star Trek is about. Like you're living in a little village, what's beyond the valley, and then you have an enlightening.
Like the road, yeah.
And you move past that and you grow.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
So, and initially, George, like that's where I was going too, but as I started thinking about it more as I was watching, I'm like, wow. I
wasn't feeling too well in the hospital like I'm at now, but I will give it a second watch because you're making me think I missed a few points because of my patience level.
Yeah, that certainly could have been part of it. All right, Joe, anything you want to add before we go over to Ross?
I'd watch
we
a
can
series.
always come back to you, but
I'd watch a Ephraim and Dot series for sure.
Yeah, I thought they were super cute. Ross, you want to chime in?
Well, starting with Ephraim and Dot, it was adorable. I was geeking out over the teaser they released for it the week before, just picking apart all the little details that I was seeing about what callbacks and Easter eggs they were going to make as the short went through. And as I watched it, I was giddy. I was gleeful the entire time.
Really surprised,
It was so bright and fun, and it was nice. Called a chaser from the more serious and darker themes that has been Discovery so far, and to kind of bridge at least a piece of Discovery with TOS in a different way. Is it entirely plausible? Maybe not, but I can overlook that for the fun of it, and I just loved how they kind of bridged together the run of TOS with kind of a greatest hits montage as Ephraim is chasing down the Enterprise throughout its long and storied career. And
here's
of course,
a question for you, Ross.
What's that?
Oh, I had a question for you. Do you think that the preview, I've seen the Enterprise A in the Discovery universe. You think that's considered the canon?
I'll get to that after I talk about the girl who made the stars. That one was also adorable, and I see a lot of people saying it's not Trek either because it doesn't feature any Trek in it aside from the characters. Honestly, it's no different for me than all the stories of Kahless that we heard throughout the run of Star Trek. There are so
that's
many
true.
different myths and folk tales and other things that are used to carry the story forward in Star Trek that don't involve big, broad science fiction tropes. It's refreshing
Right.
to kind of bring the idea of discovery and overcoming fear. Thank you, Joe. I hadn't thought of that before. To a smaller scope, a personal scope, and to draw a parallel between the broader themes of Star Trek to a simpler kind of story. And I really liked that. Now, going
Yeah.
back to Ephraim and Dot, there were the whole Enterprise A thing. There were some pretty serious mix-ups with some of the art assets, like seeing 1701A. It's clearly taking place during Star Trek 2 and 3, and the A wasn't there yet. That seems to have been a mix-up on the production company. There was that. They seem to reverse the texture on the underside at one point because the A is upside down. And
I
during
didn't notice that the A wasn't the.
yeah, and then
The
in the
way-
overhead scene, where on the bottom right of Justin's screen, you see that the registry and name are offset by 45 degrees, making it look like the nacelles are going one way, but the saucer's going a different one. That's probably just production errors that happened on the outsourced studios parts.
Artistic license too, maybe.
Yeah, I would call it artistic license, because if you look at the framing there, if they'd had it centered the way it was, you wouldn't have been able. You'd have missed half of the insignia there. So
maybe
by moving it.
It's real. It looks really weird to me, and well, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it. I mean, I see it like, okay, that's probably just a mistake, not a big deal. It happens. But I've seen a lot of fans just kind of go absolutely nuts. One person I follow called it a complete dishonor to Star Trek. And
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's like, Star Trek 5 having them go from the edge of the galaxy to the center of the galaxy like in an hour. Come on, that
see
is
what you
dishonor.
started, Justin? Do you see what you started,
Yes,
Justin?
I know. I'm bad. But see, I didn't hate it.
These are small criticisms that don't ruin my enjoyment of the short. I love it. It's one of the best things I've seen in Star Trek for a while, and I honestly think Star Trek would benefit from having more animated elements in it.
Well, we're certainly going to see that upcoming in the Nickelodeon series and in Star Trek Lower Decks.
I'm looking forward to both of those a great deal.
Me too.
I think the push to make everything live action and CG really loses out on a lot of creativity. And
when we get to we can follow up on that topic a little bit more when we get to the CBS All Access topic that we've got scheduled. Gotcha. Since we're running out of time on this segment, how about we go to Sun for your impressions?
After having watched both of these episodes, I honestly think that I don't know if it was the same production studio for both episodes.
It was.
But it looks like CBS is trying to find an art style for their kids' show.
The 3D one, I think, is the style they'll end up using.
Because they're completely different art styles, yet.
Well, why should they be the same? Why do they have to be the same?
No, what I'm saying is for the kids show on Nickelodeon, they're trying to find an art style.
I expect that's running on a completely separate track.
I think they'll use the Girl Who Made the Stars cell shading.
I think it's too early to say either of those. I mean, it's obviously they're in development. Well,
they did announce that it was 3D. That's the only thing we do know.
Well,
I'm not saying that. Okay, maybe I'm not making myself clear. I'm just saying that these are little things that they're throwing out to test an audience reaction for a style.
Yes, it's possible. That's true.
I don't know. I think that's a stretch. I mean, sure, they're a test in the sense that they're not the same. Therefore, they want to gauge how people react to them. But in terms of how the actual Nickelodeon show is being developed, I think that, they're not explicitly going, I mean, they've hired people because to develop it who have a certain expertise. They're going to do what they think is best. They're not expecting one-off animation styles to dictate what they're going to end up showing for the new show on Nickelodeon.
And that's fair enough. That's just what I think of them being so weirdly different to me.
Because interestingly, the target audience for Nickelodeon is different from the target audiences of these two shorts, which both skew younger, probably.
Right.
Ephraim and Dot youngest, and Girl Who Made the Stars probably a bit older, but because the main character is so young and the story was young skewing, I expect that you're going to see something a bit more sophisticated for Nickelodeon, just because they're aiming for tweens and early teens.
Carlos, I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the answer. Did Nickelodeon do any runs for the original Star Trek animated series to have an audience?
You mean, did they ever appear? Did the series ever appear on Nickelodeon?
Did they ever air them? Like, did they get the license to air them?
Oh gosh, I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Because I'm wondering if they
Cartoon
have an
Network
audience.
did at one
But
point.
but again, that was something that was made 40 years ago. So
Right.
I don't know what you would necessarily learn from that, because it's a style that you just don't see anymore. I mean, even at the
just know
time,
the
it was
Nickelodeon
very
kids are
Well,
aware of the show, Star Trek.
the style of the animated series kind of got carried on with shows like Archer.
well, but Archer does it. No, Archer actually, its animation style is way more sophisticated than.
Yeah, it uses cell
Well, no,
shading.
it was an evolution.
style.
You had C Lab 2020, which folded into
I love
C Lab
that show.
2021. C Lab 2021 is one of my favorites, and then that carried forward into Frisky Dingo, which then directly evolved into Archer.
Yeah, they
So
are
kinda-
similar.
It's an evolution, is what I'm saying. It was initially
Well,
done
I
for
mean,
cost saving,
maybe,
and
but
then
I
kinda
always felt
became
like
its own.
Archer was being very deliberately, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Deliberately not parodying, but that they were that this animation style they chose was an important part of this sort of parody aspects of the stories on the show, as opposed to something that just sort of happened developmentally. It's like very intentional. We want it to look this way because we want to create this kind of atmosphere, sort of thing.
I do have to say, though, both episodes really hit the uncanny valley mark for me. I did not like either
Really?
in that respect.
Now, that's an interesting comment, because the uncanny valley usually refers to something that attempts to look realistic and falls short. In this sense, I don't think they were attempting to look realistic. I mean, of the two, maybe Girl Who Made the Stars probably was aiming closer to that, but I felt like they were
You
very...
did not see McCoy and Kirk and Khan. That was terrifying.
Well, yes, I did see that, but again, I felt like that was less an attempt. Like they weren't attempting to make them look exactly like they.
Oh,
Well, plus
light
who knows
bulb.
who's going to be playing them besides Spock if in
Light-
the future of CBS All Access.
What they were doing with Ephraim and Dot is kind of similar to what Disney's doing with the Galaxy of Adventure YouTube channel, making animated shorts of the best moments in Star Wars repackaged for a younger audience.
Right.
I do have to say, though, when I saw the little teaser that everybody was showing from last week, I thought, this looks very Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And watching the episode, holy crap, is it something from out of Tex Avery? Just all of the craziness going on. You can
Definitely had that. I mean, even some of the sound effects were like, when his appendages are flailing, it's like. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Definitely a callback to some of those old animation styles and sound effects. Sure, for sure.
I do have to. I think the one thing that I liked from Ephemerum and Dot was the Doctor Who kind of opening with the mycelial network.
That was cool.
What did you think of the kind of the black and white sort of newsreel
That was cool
effect that they went for?
I think I would have liked it a lot more if they'd kept that the entire episode.
Interesting. it did make, doing it the way they did make the appearance of the Enterprise so suddenly a much bigger thing visually,
Felt
because
like I
they,
wasn't in Kansas anymore, and I didn't like it.
oh, see, that's what I did like about it. Interesting.
And the score for the whole thing was just perfection.
Yeah, it was, it's interesting because they used a lot of the motifs from like the big fight scene between Ephraim and Dot
Yeah.
was totally felt and sounded very much like the original Star Trek series fight music, even though it wasn't exactly the same music. It had the same kind of chord progression and same kind of like tempo and that sort of thing.
The composer and scorer for these episodes also directed it.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Did you notice, by the way,
Michael
Kirk Thatcher, the actor, also was one of the...
I think.
What's that?
Michael Giannaccio. I'm probably butchering his last name. Giannaccio, something like that. I have to look it up again.
That sounds right.
He was. I found a couple of his tweets, and that's how I found the production company who did the animation.
And also had voice actors who had appeared in previous incarnations of Star Trek. Kirk Thatcher, who you may remember from as the punk on the bus in Star Trek IV, whom Spock, he's like listening to that punk music, and Spock gives
the
him
one
a Vulcan neck pinch.
Yep.
Was that? Yeah, same guy appeared in here. And then there was the woman whose name escapes me. I think she was on Voyager, maybe. Did some of the other vocal effects in it as well. So it was an interesting thing. Did everyone get a shot at giving their reactions?
Okay, so the girl who made the stars. Did anybody else get the feeling that the alien that she gets the little device from was one of the, it looked similar to the Equinox aliens from Voyager?
Yeah, it kind of
They definitely looked, it looked familiar, and I was thinking, where have I seen this alien before? So my guess is yes, they were trying to suggest an alien we'd seen before, but I couldn't quite place it.
The way they've been doing these short tracks, it could come back later with Michael. So they usually set up.
You know what it reminded me of? Actually, the Red Angel. Look at the wings of it.
But remember, the alien that was in it was appearing to the girl in the story, not Michael.
I know, but
Now, here's the interesting thing. This is where I both agree with. This is where I agree with the both of you, words, both sides of this argument. You could literally remove Trek from both of these episodes in every instance, and you would still have this fascinating story for both without Trek at all. And
yeah, well,
that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing at all. And having that Trek in there doesn't remove anything from Trek either. So, like I said, I can understand the it's not Trek and the yes it is Trek arguments.
Well, I mean, to me, the whole idea of the girl looking like Michael Burnham, and I'll try not to repeat what Ross said, because I think he said it really well. But the idea was that you see some very Trek themes in that story. The idea of exploration and moving, beyond fear and confronting the night, and not letting the things that you're scared of keep you from moving forward and evolving. All of that is very, very Star Trek.
It definitely reminds me of us hearing a Chakotay story.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also the same story that Michael told his story at the speech at the end of the war in season 1.
Yeah, it was one of the opening voiceover things in that episode.
How do we beat fear? You say no, and you do whatever. That was based off. That story was based off what she told. It was a story she'd heard before from someone. So.
All right. Well, Justin.
Oh, Justin.
Yeah. Well, I liked them both. I thought they're quite well done, minus the errors on Ephraim and Dot. I mean, okay, that was only kind of ticking off a little bit, but I mean, it's a good episode. It's a good episode, and the only reason why I'm upset, I'm like, we're paying for this. They should not have errors like this.
Oh my God, Justin. We pay
But-
for all of Star Trek, and it is riven with errors.
I
Why
mean-
should this be different?
Yeah, but I mean, this harkens back to the coffee cup in Game of Thrones.
It goes back a lot farther than that, but
Yeah,
that's a
but,
good example.
You know,
I mean,
that you don't the stuff that you really shouldn't have, that should have been caught in quality and control, but it got slipped through. Probably give them a benefit of the doubt. They were probably under a time constraint to get it out, and he probably didn't have time.
I mean that's true of virtually every film and TV production.
But I'm not knocking it at all. That was my only complaint on it. Otherwise they're both great, and they both can stand on their own outside of track.
As far as I can tell, the company that did this is. Oh, hang on, I have it 1 second, and Pixomondo. They're a VFX company that's worked on Game of Thrones. They're an Oscar-winning company, but as far as I can tell, this is their first dedicated animated production.
You said
Everything
it right
else
there.
has just been visual effects for different
Interesting.
series.
It was probably fun for them to do it, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You said it. You said one of them right there. Game of Thrones. I wonder if they worked on the coffee cup.
No, they did the dragons.
At the dragons. Okay, we are way over time on this topic, so let's move ahead to topic number 3, which is the dropping of the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer this week. Justin, why don't you start us off?
Well, I thought it was great. I cannot wait. This is going to be so good just by the trailer alone. It looks like they've really captured the actual feel of Ghostbusters this time. I mean, okay, 2016 was okay for what it was, but Ghostbusters movie, it should not have been. It should have been something else.
Well, it should have included the original lore.
Yeah, it should have.
It would have been it's a fine Ghostbusters movie. I think the casting the original cast as different characters was a mistake. Removing it from the original
timeline.
kind of timeline. But I mean I just going through those, it wasn't bad. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not going to discount it for its mistakes.
Right. I mean, I think it could have made it on its own, on this, on a standalone outside of, Ghostbusters. But
even in the original Ghostbusters, one of their goals was to start a franchise. It was supposed to, in Dan Aykroyd's original vision of what Ghostbusters would become. He envisioned that they'd be like a fire station in every city because the walls between worlds are thinner, and you'd have a Ghostbusters and like the way that we do fire stations.
Well,
So
I mean, and they should have kept with that theme, and they should at least acknowledge the originals, and I think that would have helped them a lot if they would have.
Yeah, I think that's what turned a lot of people off, was that it was just such a explicit rejection of the original that it overwhelmed the quality of the end product.
And I love the fact that they made sure to point out that they point to the originals in this. I mean, they got the first car. I mean, original everything.
The joyride in the Ecto one, that was just beautiful.
Oh my god!
I think it's unfair for people to. I mean, I can understand because Finn Wolf I think that's the name. From Stranger Things,
Finn
it makes
Wolfhard,
it look like, this is Stranger Things. Ghostbusters and they ripped off Stranger Things because they wore the uniforms.
Who cares?
It's not. What I like about this is Dan Aykroyd has gone through decades of trying to get a third movie done. He had totally different concepts, but the biggest idea was they would be passing the torch to a new generation of Ghostbusters. The last time they came close to getting it made, Ben Stiller, Alyssa Milano, and a few other people were going to be the new crew. But then Columbia ended up just yet again. And actually, the biggest problem was Bill Murray. He was back in his days where he was a diva, and too good for Ghostbusters.
Wasn't that whenever him and Harold Ramis fell out?
Right. Yeah, those things kept put in the back burner because they didn't want to do it without Bill. But the idea that their approach they're taking here is what I think it was making everybody give it a thumbs up. It's like Sean said in the thing. He's very gatekeepy about Ghostbusters as far as what it should be, and he approves of this concept so far. And the idea that the Ghostbusters did their job, but the only reason people are all remembering them as much is because it hasn't been a ghost in 30 years. That these are the grandkids of some of the Ghostbusters. Like I think Finn is the grandson of Egon, and I think the girl is the daughter or granddaughter of either Venkman or Ray. And but either way, they're all in this one, even Bill Murray. And just the way that they're doing it, where they're discovering these old tools and they're going to and figuring things out. Here's an interesting trivia: that gunner seat that he pops out on in the trailer, that was from the cartoon.
And they actually did get a new crew of ghost fighters in a separate cartoon series that I really enjoyed.
Right, Ghostbusters. I forget what it's called.
Extreme. It was the 90s and everything.
Right.
We should have our own Super Geeks Extreme.
I think we got to go into syndication before we get one of those.
Okay, well, but put a pin in that.
Pre-record a show and syndicate it. There you go.
Here's a must trivia. The title of our show was just Super Geeks a long time ago, but because I started seeing others pop up, I changed it to the real Super Geeks, which because the Ghostbusters
in honor of Ghostbusters. Yes, that was a good.
The way that they did that. Yeah, because when Filmation did a Ghostbusters thing, Columbia made their movie way after that. Then they couldn't get the copyright away from them, so they said, well, if we make a tweak, the real Ghostbusters, they're all set.
And none of the likenesses matched the actors.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, that was probably. Yeah, its own legal set of issues.
Oh yeah.
Before we move on to our next topic, Son or Joe, do you want to weigh in on Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I have to admit, I'm cautious. I'm somewhat optimistic, but I'm cautious, especially after the 2016 Ghostbusters. Because remember that commercial?
Yeah, but look at who's directing and producing this one.
That commercial gave us like all of the slapstick we liked from the original, but when it came to actually having the movie, what we got was a film that was nothing but this weirdo, outrageous slapstick and none of the seriousness.
Yeah, but that was Paul Feig. This is
with this one, you're seeing a lot more of the seriousness in the trailer, right. And I'm like, could it be swinging the other way? And I just don't know.
I guess we'll have to tune in to find out. Joe, you get the last word.
If he's there.
Hello, Joe.
Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, you lost out, Joe. We're moving on to topic number 4. This week was a big week. Finally, we got the premiere of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it premiered, debuted to a lot of thumbs up around the interwebs. George, I know you were especially looking forward to this one, so you get.
I took notes.
What do you think?
All right, I have notes, so this is going to be organized and not a rambling thought. First thing, I loved it, but there's a few pet peeves. The Tom Welling. Oh, by the way, folks, there will be spoilers. The Tom Welling.
That's right. Segment. Spoiler alert. Do you have a spoiler icon or a spoiler visual, Justin? There you go. Spoilers ahead. So go on. Back to you, George.
A lot of people were looking for, everybody was looking forward to Tom Welling, but, over time, it became clear it was probably just a small cameo. Now, I love the twist of what ended up happening. And John Cryer's Lex Luthor actually worked in this one, unlike on Supergirl, and the way he was interacting. Tom Welling's attitude, just kind of like laid back with his axe, like, oh yeah, I'm going to kill all the Superman and all that stuff. And then he's like pulling the kryptonite out of him. He's just like, yep. He just throws it because he got rid of his powers for his family. Now, the only complaint I have about that is that I remember there were episodes where him and Lois talked about how the world needs Superman, and that because he was talking about giving it up many times, especially if they get married and have family. And this reverses everything that they talked about on the actual show on Smallville. So, but I mean, it's a minor pet peeve because maybe when the girls were born, maybe they're twins. We don't know.
Yeah, everything changes once you become a parent, dude.
I know, but it's like the entire world would still need Superman. So I find it kind of just, But I mean, it was a nice twist that they inverted your expectations and gave another reason why yet again he wasn't going to put on the suit. Smallville was always about Clark, so that part I liked. Brandon Routh was awesome as what now is clear. Both the Superman Returns, he's an older Superman Returns Superman, and he's Kingdom Come Superman. They tied elements both in there. He talked about his son Jason when he was looking at the baby Jonathan, so that made it clear that was the case. Like I said earlier, John Cryer as Lex Luthor. He was actually effective as a Lex Luthor in this one because all of his motives and taking advantage of the situation. I liked it. The Arrow stuff is a wait and see because all the build up they've been doing on both Arrow and here to prepare for the sacrifice. If they bring him back with the Lazarus Pit, well, they did get his soul and everything. The next two parts are going to determine whether it cheapens or the build up to that, or if they do a twist that makes it like they never really knew for sure who the person that. In the Monitor seems pretty unsure, the more powerful the antimatter got about what's going on and how to solve it. But my favorite part is this entire crossover was the Supergirl, Batwoman friendship that built because it stemmed off of what happened in Elseworlds and it took a natural course. And I absolutely loved the friendship that they built up. It felt real. Now here's a question I have for you, Carlos, because we were both aficionados of these comics. We always predicted that they would either probably merge the excuse for the Earths and the characters to come together, but they're doing this in an evacuation scenario. Is that going to be? Do you think it's worse or more logical to do it that way, where everyone retains their memories and everybody's getting used to everybody migrating over to this world?
It's hard to say. The fact that quite apart from the fact that evacuating billions of people in less than 24 hours it's basically impossible. So even neglecting that fact, the merging of all the multiverses into one could still change everybody's
the ones
memories.
they were able to save. I'm like,
So I don't think it, them all going over to Earth One necessarily means that they won't forget, because they will. I mean, they could. So that action by itself, I don't think makes that implausible anymore.
All right. Well, that was all my bullet points. So whoever wants to go next.
Okay. Son, did you get a chance to catch up on Crisis?
I haven't seen any of the episodes at all, but considering I'm one to listen to people like Liana K on YouTube, she gave a sort of review of it, and from her perspective, it seems like a lot of what's missing in Crisis is Wonder Woman.
She could still show up in a cameo.
That a lot of the impact of what's going on right now seems missing something, and it's something they're trying to fill with Supergirl and Batwoman, but it's because there's a Wonder Woman missing.
He did have a flash of the Titans.
I saw that.
If they do anything, they'll probably do Wonder Girl, because with the Wonder Woman movie, which we'll talk about later in a bit, coming up, they're not going to want to cast another actor just to play Wonder Woman on a TV.
Yeah, I really doubt you're going to end up seeing Wonder Woman in the remaining parts of Crisis.
I also saw her, and I've actually seen a few other people say that. Oh, good God, what's his name? Ollie, is it the Green Arrow?
Oliver, yeah.
Yeah, his death was cheap. It was just a cheap death.
There's a reason why he had his death, and it's made clear in another trailer. I mean, this is a bit of a spoiler that He's going to become the Spectre.
Yeah, I think that's
it
pretty
was,
likely.
Well, yeah, but it was built on from what
No, but they cast a different actor.
from what I understand of people explaining what happened in the comics, there was this big emotional sacrifice that he did. And what happened in this crisis was kind of just cheap. It had no real impact.
Well, I mean, they did resurrect him. So, I mean, he might come back this long enough to die again. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
Everything the monitor saw got skewed, and he even said that.
Yeah,
so it's like the Jedi in the prequels. Their visions were clouded.
So, I mean, everything's kind of up in the air right now because things got escalated out of the monitor's control. So it's, it's going to be very interesting when this picks back up at the beginning of the year.
I do have to admit, though, I agree with Liana. Please, CW, use this to kill Batwoman. Please.
I think it's too early to.
That actress is great in a whole bunch of other shit, but Batwoman is terrible. It's a show.
She's great. Actually, she's doing really well in this crisis. Her acting's been spot on.
Well, I think it's been better in Crisis than it's been on a regular show.
Yeah.
I think that's that's the issue of writing, not an issue of the actor.
And whoever's directing her.
Exactly.
That's why I said kill Batwoman, not Ruby Rose.
Well, if anything, what you saw in Crisis so far was a handing off to Batwoman of the mantle of Batman. So I don't think what you're hoping for is going to happen, son.
That's absolutely true, Kevin. I didn't like how they handled Kevin Conroy, but we could talk.
Oh, I loved it. Are you kidding?
Are
you kidding?
That was interesting.
Actually, no, wait. You know what?
Dark
now
Knight.
That I think about it, yeah,
Dark Knight.
That was
Darkest Night.
No, you're right. It was Dark Knight and combination of that. You're right. Now that I reflect back, yeah. All right, I changed my mind. As you were saying it, I was like, wait a minute. Actually,
I got pulled up the Batman
from the Dark Knight. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the internet blew up when they saw there was a Batman who on one Earth ended up killing Superman. I thought that was great. That's the whole point of the multiverse, is that you have these different versions of people you think you know, and in this case, it was an extreme version of a Batman that didn't have a counterbalancing influence in his life that otherwise kept him from turning into that.
He didn't have an Alfred.
Oh, he didn't have a Joker.
Oh, yeah, Joker.
No, he had a Joker. He killed him.
He was the one that killed. He was the one that killed the Joker. It said, I saw the clip of a news article.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, he killed Joker for sure.
Oh yeah, yep, he did. So.
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna jump in and complain, because I was looking forward to this so much, and I have to tell you, I mean, there's a lot I liked about it. I liked all the different references, the Easter eggs. I hope that they didn't kill off the Ray on Earth X, because that was such a great character, and Earth X I think is one of the best crossovers we've had so far. That was true in the comics back in the 70s when it came out, and it was true again when we saw it here in the Arrowverse on television. So I hope that we see more of the Ray, because he was just awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But I felt like, I don't know, everything moved so quickly, and it's not the pace that was a problem. It was the improbability of some of what you saw. So, for example, you had the big fight, between Green Arrow and and the other heroes against the Shadow Demons. And I know the Shadow Demons appeared in the original comics
I wasn't
too,
impressed by that.
but there was like no sense of what danger they posed, and they either were like too easy to kill or too hard to kill for reasons we never really understood. And so I couldn't get invested in the stakes on that part of the conflict, because it was like, they don't explain what these things are, what they can do, what their powers are, why like one guy with arrows is able to hold them off, but Superman and Supergirl
never-ending arrows. Oh, until he was about to die. Also, they could have, if they're that easy to kill, that Ruby Rose can jump kick a couple of them and they're done.
It
And
just
why
seemed
can't they
to
just
me like they build him up as this army, that can just
they
inflict
build them up like
all this
Dark Side's
damage, and they
yeah.
end up just being really easy to kill. So I just never got a sense of what the real danger was in terms of what I saw. They kept talking about how dangerous it was, and then there's the question of
Right.
the pacing, where it's like they're in the middle of imminent doom, but it's okay to take off some time to do some personal stuff here and there for a bunch of these characters. And I was like, you can't portray this crisis as being sort of this impending doom, and then have these really slow paced parts in there. It's like, where's the doom? I mean, you've been building up this doom for 2 years, and we're seeing it all of a sudden. It's okay to put it on pause because we've got some personal issues to work through.
Yeah, I noticed that too on some of it. It's just like, oh, come on, really? Do we really gotta do this? Is this just like a filler? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
No,
I
I get what they were trying to do. I just felt like if they had really, they just needed to. It just felt like some story, plot that was like plopped in without really thinking about how it was needed to fit into the pace they had already established for the rest of the series.
Hold that doom for one moment. Oliver, are you having marriage problems again?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes, exactly.
That's an excellent example, son.
Yeah, but this season though, with him and his daughter and everything, they've been setting up things for a possible spinoff. I think it works for that stuff.
Well, I mean, the spinoff's confirmed, I think, because
it's confirmed.
It's confirmed. What I thought was interesting was how they did this guy, the Lucifer character.
Oh, I love that cameo. That
Tom
cool.
Welling. No, what was it? Who's the actor again?
I forget the guy's name, but yeah, from Lucifer. I mean, I loved seeing him. Loved seeing Constantine. It was great to see a lot of these characters for sure.
And now they're all in the same universe.
And they did the cameos. We kept hearing how many things they're stuffing in there, and people were worried, but they did them quick. Like the Gotham 66 was cute. They did confirm that they survived, by the way. And the Keaton 89 Batman world, we had the one reporter guy and reading the news and looking up at the bat signal and saying, "I hope you saw that" or something. Then they played the Batman. They played the Danny Elfman music, and that was cool. They did quick little cameos. That was
and actually that comes straight out of the comic versions of Crisis. Is they did a lot of little quick things like that. Like they even had the Captain Carrot thing, not in this, but in the original comics. They had a little segue into Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew superheroes as well. So so I like that flavor of it as well. I just wish they had found a way to make the big fight scenes more relevant than what we saw. I mean, like more. I just kept wondering what's the big effing deal with these stupid shadow demons? Like,
I have to agree.
Plot.
It was just like they're dangerous because plot.
Yeah, exactly. They had to have a way to kill Oliver.
The Birds of Prey cameo wasn't bad, but it felt like they were really forcing her to look like her younger hunter self. And she's just kind of running around. You can hear Oracle from the tower there, and I mean it was cool. They threw that in there. They gave him a little more than a short. It wasn't like a long sequence, but just throwing her in there and the way they're showing that these are all connected was just cool. So. We'll have to wait until those last two better be damn good.
Yeah, I hope so, because I think one of the things that worked really well in previous crossovers that hasn't worked really well so far in these first three installments is the team ups in fighting. Like I think back to the Invasion crossover, and there was just some really great scenes where you saw these heroes like really team up well, and they choreographed what each one was doing really well, and it all fit into the story well, and you knew what the stakes were and everything. And we haven't really seen that yet here. So I'm hoping that's something we get more of as we move into the Legends part of it, because that is a team-based show that hopefully they will pick up that ball and run with it a lot more effectively than they have so far.
Real quick, I want to say that I love that running inside joke about it's his first crossover. Oh,
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny.
Yeah.
Or the whole reason
About-
why the Legends crew wasn't in the crossover yet, that she promised the crew that no more crossovers.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was funny. Okay, we're running out of time. Ross, did you get a chance to weigh in yet?
I don't think
Ross
you've seen it,
hasn't
Ross?
got
Ross may have
up yet.
stepped away. Okay. Joe, anything on Crisis you want to contribute?
Ding him so he knows that we're past that. Yeah.
No, nothing to
Yeah.
contribute. I haven't watched any of it yet, but I saw the screen cap of the Keaton Batmobile. I know it's not going to meet all my expectations, but I'm excited to watch it. So,
All right. Well, let us know next time and when you get a chance to catch up. It'll be almost a month between now and when we get the rest of the installments of it. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in before we go? If so, you got to keep it short. Okay, then let's move on to topic number 5, which is that The Expanse season 4 premiered a day early on Amazon Prime. Thank you, Amazon.
Yay.
I'll go to the bathroom real quick. You guys keep going.
You do the bathroom. Joe, you get to go first because I know you were very excited about this.
oh my gosh.
Me too.
So I loved it. I'm on episode 6, and I'm still trying to figure out.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out if I prefer the weekly release or the binge release, because it was kind of jarring to see the Expanse episodes pick up right where the other one left off, whereas before it was not right where they left off, and it was like your regular weekly episodes. So I don't know how I feel about it yet. I like it, it's great, but part of me kind of wishes I had 10 weeks to spread it out.
Well, you can if you want. That's the beauty
can't.
of it.
No self-control.
No self-control.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's there. You gotta watch it now.
Okay, Justin, your turn. What'd you think?
I finally started watching The Expanse a few days ago, and I made it all the way through season 3. And damn, this show's good. I'm all the way up to 6th episode for this season as well. I actually started the 7th episode right before the show started. I'm going to go back and finish it up. But yes, this is definitely a good season. Darker, but it's a good watch. And I hope they do season 5.
Oh, they've already started. They're in production for season 5.
Good.
Yeah, they're Amazon's very happy with how the show is turning out. So they gave it a go order for season 5.
This is definitely a new
months
favorite.
ago.
So I hope it continues for a good while. But yeah, it's definitely a new favorite. Sean got me hooked.
Wait a minute. I'm the one who recommended it to you.
You recommended it. Sean recommended. Okay, you both got me hooked. There. Okay.
I
There
just
we
want a
go.
little bit of credit is all.
Yeah, give me a little bit. Little bit.
Son, are you an Expanse watcher?
Hello, son.
I am not. Sadly,
Oh, okay.
no.
Well, may you get a chance to experience some of it, because it's really quite a show. I think that if it keeps on this trajectory, I think it could be a really seminal science fiction series.
I have seen like the commercials for the new season, and the only thing that I saw and I went, "Oh, that's neat," is the good God, what the lady who was in the last season, just last season of Discovery. They brought in last minute to be like an admiral.
You mean Beyond? The Admiral and Beyond?
Oh yeah, right. Oh no, but she's been in all of the. Oh yeah, exactly. You're talking about the UN Secretary General.
I think so. Remember anymore. I just remember that voice.
Yeah, she has a very distinctive voice. She's one of my. I think she's one of the best parts of the show.
Mm.
In fact, I think that most of the women roles in this show are just literally out of this world. Our friend Ryan Riddle, who's a writer and contributor a lot on Axe Monitor and stuff, is made a really great comment on Twitter the other day. He said, "At last, this is the version of Holden I've wanted to see since season 1. He's the lead male character, who's sort of the captain of the crew of the Rocinante, and I think he's the actor who plays him, James Strait, I think is his name. He's really stepped up in this season, and it's just playing him very heroically. He had a lot of self-doubt and stuff in some of the earlier seasons that has really blossomed into a much more confident and strong character than certainly than we saw back in the first season. But I think that was probably the planned evolution for him. Anyway, it's really clicking this season.
Mhm.
Let's see, Ross, I think you've still stepped away. If you haven't, feel free to chime in. But otherwise, anybody else? I'm only I think I'm about halfway through episode 3. So I'm not as far as you guys, but I will probably be binging through the weekend. So we can come back and talk more next week.
Yeah, I'm going to start trying to watch it if I can this week. I think I've seen some of one episode, but I don't remember enough to really make any commentary about the show.
Yeah, they're going some interesting places, and this is a very textured and nuanced world that they've built here, and it feels realistic.
I love the realistic feel of this show.
Yeah,
I mean, everything about it is just perfect.
I've heard a lot of good things. It's certainly on my list as well. A few of the channels that I watch have absolutely gushed over the ship designs and other elements of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, everything feels so realistic. It's fantastic.
There's this one scene where they showcase G-forces and what would happen if you suddenly stopped in space, and it is horrific.
Yeah, it's horrific.
It is.
Yeah, without some kind of inertial dampeners.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I mean, it's horrific. It's so realistic. I mean, you're sitting there going, did that really just happen? I mean, like, I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it yet, but yeah, you'll know the scene when we come to it. There's a lot of that. Wow, what the crap did I just see? Moments in this show.
I don't consider that vague thing that could happen in any episode of spoiler.
Yeah, but I like to save the surprise for the ones who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, because it's a really great visual. So yeah, you don't want to go into too much detail. Around it. Okay, so we can talk more about it next week after more people have seen more episodes of this season. But so far, so good, I'd say.
Oh yes, I can't wait to get back to watching. I gotta beat Joe on the watch time there.
All right, moving on to our next topic and over to Netflix, we have the trailer dropped this week for Lost in Space Season 2. Anyone who's gotten to see it?
I saw the first one that they dropped for Season 2, but there's a new one?
Yeah, this one came out just this week, and of course, it premieres on December 24th, I think?
Yeah.
Who's excited about it?
I'm very excited.
Yes.
All right, Joe, why don't you start us off?
Was it 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago I started.
It's been a while.
It's only been 2 years.
Well,
no, not even that.
3 years ago, I started a podcast with author Mark Cushman, who did a biography on the original Lost in Space series. He and I were going to go through and talk about each episode and how it impacted. And it was right around the time that the first season was released. I loved the first season. Unfortunately, my son, well, not unfortunately, but my son was born and derailed that podcast naturally, necessarily, and responsibly. But I loved the first season. I loved kind of the subtle and overt callbacks to it. And I liked some of the changes they made, like with the Dr. Smith character, with the robots, and how it wasn't just their family, but a lot of families that were stranded. and how that all tied into a much larger story. I thought it was very, very well done, and I especially loved the kind of broken but healing family elements.
Yeah.
In it.
The whole
Yeah,
use of the robot does.
It works really
it's
well.
interesting. I grew up watching the original series, which
also,
I
Debbie's
loved
a
as
chicken. I loved that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Instead of a chimp.
I loved this series as a kid, hated it as an adult because I just felt it was too campy and blah, blah, blah. So I was super happy to see this take on it that it took itself seriously, but not too seriously, and just upped everything else, and of course, you can't, anything with Parker Posey in it is always at least 10 to 15% better than it would otherwise be. So, so definitely looking forward to the premiere on December 24th, and happy that it will be bingeable on Netflix because I know I'm going to watch, episode after episode after episode. Let's see, we were only slated for a few minutes on this topic since obviously, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have the actual premiere. Any last words before we move on? Because we're running a bit behind.
I don't remember the robot speaking at all in the first season.
Oh, he did. He did.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
He did.
He
even said the danger Will Robinson's going.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have to go back and watch. It's been so long at this point.
I know it feels like it has been a really long time.
All I remember is the robot noises. So
I like his face, the little light up facing things and how it changes expressions and stuff. I think that was a really great visual design element.
And most importantly of all, they got a Bill Mumy cameo.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the one that was supposed to be Dr.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move us along to our topic number 7, which is our weekly review of the best Star Trek or best Picard episodes from The Next Generation. And this, I think, is number 3. The episode is from season 4, episode 21, The Drumhead, which definitely is a big episode in terms of Picard's own character development, but also our view of the Federation in the 24th century. And for people who talk about how The Next Generation was always, so optimistic and how Discovery is so anti that, we actually see in this episode some important elements about some of the dark sides of the Federation and of Starfleet that we see much more fully developed in Discovery, and will likely see more fully developed as well in Star Trek Picard. So that said, let's move into what we thought of The Drumhead. I did a rewatch of it last night myself. Who else wants to chime in?
I haven't chimed in for a whole topic, so if you don't mind. It was also a foreshadow to what eventually was repeated, where you are the witch hunters in the episode where Admiral Lofton or whatever his name was tried to do a coup with Starfleet during the Dominion War, the pre-Dominion War, and the fear and what it causes as far as reasons to try to take control of the government because they want to protect it. And this lady, who was the witch hunter or inquisitor or whatever you want to call her, she invokes that fear because at the time, and this is what's going to repeat in Picard, at the time it was the Romulans were the feared enemy that will, like the Russians back in the 80s, they were the ones that were expected to be our next big conflict again. They've had a war before. And things like Picard having a 3/4 Romulan or whatever, crewman Tarsus on the crew, and Picard sticking up for him the way he would like Data. It's another good arbitration episode for Picard to defend somebody or himself or anything the crew's done. And, in the way that he exposes her for her true colors, her true nature. And part of it was her background. But yeah, I mean, and Worf, the lesson he taught Worf about just because somebody has Romulan DNA doesn't make him the enemy.
Right. Well, and questioning Worf's own sort of slavish devotion to authority, which,
right.
Which Picard set forth the example of standing up to to authority in service of the truth.
Right. Yep. And they, I like this episode probably the best of the ones we've reviewed so far. Who Watches the Watchers was right next to it, but I found this one had a lot of different messages that could still happen, which is when the best of Trek is where you're doomed to repeat history if you don't remember it. That old saying.
Mm-hmm. Son, what did you think of the Drumhead in retrospect?
The Drumhead is an episode of caution, and not from the character's perspective of the Enterprise crew, but from the perspective of anybody who would want to be Admiral Satie, to be that litigator, that person that is always finding justice and putting the nail in the coffin of something that is unjust. Because if you go that far, you will become that paranoid and you will become that reactionary.
Yep.
Yeah, well put. Joe, what do you think of Picard's development as we saw in this episode?
I think I haven't watched it recently, but I always remember the quote at the end is "Vigilance, Mr. Worf. That's the price we must continually pay."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the episode is applicable to current events right now.
For sure. We're seeing a lot of the same kind of paranoia.
On many levels.
Yeah. But no, like as soon as you mentioned that episode, that's that last scene is what I remember most about that episode.
Yeah, that last scene, I remember he makes a very sobering analysis of the development of humanity at that point, in which he says, we imagine that we have come so far, and yet we still so easily can be, can fall back on these old sort of paranoid ways of thinking. And that's a really telling observation that we hear resonated several times over in Star Trek history. And as I said in the opening, we see definitely the case in Star Trek Discovery, and definitely the case in Star Trek Picard, at least from what we've seen so far. So, yeah. Anyone else? Who have I missed? Ross, have I asked you?
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack with this episode, but it's just building off what you just talked about, the evolved form of man that we see in Star Trek. It's not something that just happens. It's not something that we inherit. It's not something that's a part of us as we are birthed into that far future. It's a conscious choice. It's a lesson that we teach future generations. It's a lesson that we have to nurture, and it's one that we have to understand looking back on the past. And that's something that I end up commenting on a lot of other Star Trek commentator channels that poke those holes and say, hey, look at here, they're falling back on the evolved man. Well, that's because it's a choice. And this episode is a perfect example of that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the absolute Chad power move that Satie makes by serving Captain Picard on the bridge. What? While he's in command, while he's in his damn captain's chair. What the hell? Any other ship, I don't care who you are, where you are, what century you're in, you don't serve the captain of a ship in front of his crew. That is undermining his command in the worst possible way. And the amount of restraint Picard must have had in that moment.
I bet.
Yeah.
And luckily, the way he handled himself on the stand after that is just awe-inspiring.
Luckily, he handed it right back to her in the end.
Yes, he did.
Sure. I wonder, one of the things that I thought was interesting about that scene where he's on the stand, they have that other admiral who is also sitting in judgment, and he just ends up just standing and walking away after she sort of loses it.
Yeah, wasn't he a Vulcan?
No, I don't think he was a Vulcan.
No.
He was human. And and which was great. That was a great scene. But the thing is, in translating this into the real world, it's like sometimes we don't always have an admiral like that to sort of weigh in on the fact that someone is just out of control, like Satie was. And what if you don't have an admiral like that? What ends up happening? And is that something we're going to see actually happen
Lots of
in
memes.
Picard, or what's that, Ross?
Memes are what happens. Lots
Memes
of
are what
memes.
happens, I suppose. But it's scary to contemplate. I mean, right now, in the middle of an impeachment of a U.S. president, when the public is so tribalized, there's no sort of big overarching authority that is standing in the way of any of this, that can sort of render judgment and say, yeah, you're clearly out of control. And we've often looked at like the Supreme Court to fill that sort of role, except they've been falling down on that, on filling that kind of role in the last few years.
Another good example to put out is, for those of us watching this season of The Expanse, is the UN guy that's on the ground with the belters trying to, and he's not exactly all that good, but he's a de facto person in charge.
Yeah, he always plays bad guys in everything.
He does. So,
it's definitely a recurring theme and something very relevant to what we're living through even today. So, but it's scary to contemplate, like, what happens when you don't have someone reasonable and in the right position of authority to just kind of short circuit, what's going on.
Agreed. Has everybody weighed in? I know I kind of bowed out there for a second. My internet decided to take a dump on me.
I think we've gotten to everyone, yes?
All right.
Okay. Then let's move on to another topic, still staying on Star Trek, but this is about kind of a broader issue, which is from an article that I came across last week in Vanity Fair that was talking about the expanding number of Star Trek series, and wondering out loud whether the Star Trek universe it has developed into something of a secret weapon for CBS All Access to grow itself as a streaming platform, and what are some of the questions that arise from that? Is there a theoretical upper limit to the number of Star Trek series you can have on air before people get tired of it, or is there a lot more room to explore a bigger universe that is described by Star Trek that we've never had the opportunity to really explore before, outside of just those people on the Enterprise, pretty much. Except for DS9, which is one of the reasons I think it stands out. But where do you all stand on that?
Excuse me, secret weapon? Discovery was made specifically to get people into CBS All Access to begin with.
Right, but then it's
worst kept secret.
It's another leap to go beyond that. I mean, it's not just the bait on a hook. Now it's the whole fish.
It became clear, like halfway through Discovery season 1, that they were starting to announce things that still haven't happened, but like the Khan miniseries and stuff like that. And it's very clear that, well, of course, everything happened behind the scenes with Chris and everybody, but they clearly strategized a plan to launch it, and then if things are going good, start announcing and preparing more shows. But they did it in I think they did it at a good pace. So by the end of the first year and Discovery season 2 coming, you were sensing that they had more down the pipe, and but they weren't rushing it. So it wasn't like you were getting overwhelmed. I think they've been pacing it just right, so that by the time we get to the actual Section 31 series and Picard's coming first, of course. But once you get to those, and then eventually they spin off into Section 31. I think the way they're handling the management of these many shows is that one's passing off to story-wise to another. The short treks being the exception because they're random as far as mostly they're using the sets and time period from Discovery so far, or at least Discovery season 1 and 2. But they, and we know that they want Pike to get going, but they got to get greenlit. So they're waiting for CBS to approve.
Well, remember, I don't know if you guys saw that there were a couple of articles that said that Eugene Roddenberry let slip that there definitely is a Pike series in the works.
Right. They just haven't gotten the green light on this format that they have exactly planned out for it.
They may have the green light, they just haven't announced.
So what you're
They're
saying
waiting for the
is-
opportunity.
So what you're saying
But
is
I don't.
there's a new series in the pipeline?
Hashtag I see what you did there.
To answer the original question, basically, no. I mean, is it their secret weapon? I don't know if they planned it that way, but as they go, they have things prepared for series if it's working. And as the numbers have gotten better, little by little, they've been saying, okay, this is coming. They made the big announcement with Patrick Stewart. So I think they strategized it, but I don't necessarily know if it's a secret weapon. I mean, they wanted to see what would happen with the reaction of Star Trek coming back in the first place, cautionary, but they were prepared if it did, great numbers. So I think.
Well, I think the secret
will
part
happen to be a secret weapon, but I don't know if that was intentional.
I think the secret part is less about the Star Trek part than it is about the context of the larger network of CBS All Access, because obviously it's a streaming platform that's about more than just Star Trek, but but it's like the business model for malls used to be that you need some anchor stores, the big department stores, to serve as the anchors for a mall, and then it gets filled in with
every
other
mall
stores.
has to have a Sears,
right, or a JCPenney's or a Nordstrom or something like that.
Yeah,
so the question
you gotta have
is,
the Orange Julius.
in order to have the Orange Julius, you have to have the JCPenney's kind of a thing. And is that what we're seeing in operation here?
Yeah, this goes back to the launch of the UPN network with Star Trek Voyager back in '90s. The same concept, even though this was a TV network.
If you want to have your deadly games, you got to have Voyager.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Justin, because I always felt like the decision to make Voyager the flagship for UPN was a huge mistake, and contributed to real problems for Voyager, and I may have made this argument, on one of our episodes a long time ago, but it seemed to me like they stepped away from a very, very successful financial, business model for Star Trek, which was first run syndication.
Oh yeah. But they had to have something to launch UPN with.
Sure, but they chose the wrong thing.
Yeah, but
they chose the wrong thing.
It also didn't help.
Star Trek has never been successful on a broadcast network.
Yeah.
Ever. And so even though it's successful,
TOS's Nielsen ratings would disagree with you.
No, it was canceled, dude.
It was not canceled because of its Nielsen ratings.
And what was it canceled, Ross?
It was canceled because of its political messages that the network.
Bullshit. That
no,
is
it is not
true.
I can prove
that is
it.
Not true.
I have the information from Mark from his research.
You know what, Mark? It's interesting you bring up Mark. Mark's research has a lot of really critical flaws in it. That if where he has very consistently misinterpreted a lot of the documentary evidence, or ignored or never found documentary evidence for a lot of his assertions. And go to trekfactcheck.com. The guy who runs it does a lot of fact checks on Mark's work, and I trust. Let me finish, please.
All this.
So I would take anything Mark Cushman says with a grain of salt. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying that his research is not as complete as he would have you believe.
There's a very simple answer to this. We literally had Mr. Trekland on a week ago. Get his ass in here.
Sure, I think it'd be a good discussion topic on its own for a later show. What do you think, Ross? We can both amass our evidence and come together and see what ends up rising up off the battlefield.
All right, we've gone on enough of a tangent.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that one too, and come back to it on another episode. I think it'd be a good thing because it's a bold claim. It's a bold claim. Okay, we still have a couple minutes left on this topic. Anyone else want to weigh in on how wise it is for CBS All Access to put so many of its eggs in Star Trek's basket?
Well, the difference there, this isn't a case of TNG and DS9 competing with Voyager, and that was one of the biggest problems, is because DS9 and Voyager would often overlap in their time slots, which was stupid, which was just plain idiotic on both networks' parts and on behalf of the property owner for letting it happen. In this case, we're not having multiple shows streaming at the exact same time, at least not yet. But even so, it's not like they're competing for a time slot.
I think it has for DS9 and the Next Generation because they're on at different times. In some cases, different channels because it was syndicated.
Yeah, I don't think the other one wasn't. Joe, go ahead.
I don't think it has anything to do with the time slots. I think it has to do with the content. Like back in the 90s, you could go to TNG, you could go to Voyager, you go to DS9, and unless you were a fan, you couldn't tell the difference between any of those shows. And with what we're seeing now with Discovery and Picard and the short treks with the cartoons and then the cartoon series coming out now, it's different. And the content is varied and it doesn't feel like everything is just flowing in this monotonous tone that it felt like from 98 to 2005. So I think that they're putting their eggs in one basket, but the content is varied from show to show.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like this is Star Trek.
One's a coffee beanery and the other one's Dippin' Dots.
And I will say it's good to see that CBS has learned the mistakes that Warner Brothers made when creating their expanded movie universe, that they're taking baby steps and branching out a little at a time into creating more and varied forms of Star Trek.
And listening very closely to how well fans are reacting to it, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that's the one thing that you guys talking about this kind of makes me look at this. This kind of reminds me of the launching off of the Marvel Cinematic Universe just with Star Trek, basically.
Yeah, no, I think I was thinking the same thing.
I think sometimes it's going to also, like the Marvel thing, they're going to come up with things that they see happening organically, and they're going to course correct in ways they'd never anticipated when you just sit there on a piece of paper and a graph.
Yeah, I mean, Pike was not something they planned. I mean, that he was going to be that popular.
I heard a claim that on set, the chemistry and Nancy Mouth, they kind of knew.
Well, yeah, on set, dude, but that's
right.
On set. It was not. They did not go into season 2 expecting that was going to happen. It was just like Anson Mount was amazing, and they could see that as it was in production.
He was so amazing. He supplanted Captain Picard as the best captain for many people.
I think for a lot of people,
I think,
very true.
If it wasn't for Anson Mount stepping in, season 2 of Discovery might have been the last.
Hard to say.
I think it might have been because
I mean, that's like saying, if Leonard Nimoy had died, between seasons 1 and 2. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
Well, he held the season last season. I mean, he made it.
He stole the show.
Because if it wasn't
did he? Was it a question of did he stole the show, or did he save the show? I mean,
is he a male 7 and 9?
There's only one person who stole the show every shot that they were in last season. Was number 1.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
I
You guys are making him sound like a male 7 and 9 who came in, and everybody was like, "Oh, shows the."
He was. He pretty much was. He's the one that.
Well,
I mean,
in a lot of ways. I mean, in the sense that it was a very deliberate tactic that succeeded beyond expectations. So yeah, I guess in that sense,
look at
it
all the
was.
complaints that were about season one, about the characters and the development and the actors, and then season two comes
You
around
still
and
had a whole bunch of
Pike.
that in season
Still
2.
well, you still had that, but everybody's like, "But we love Pike. Keep him out."
People love Lorca, but we killed him. What are we gonna do? How about a good Lorca?
Yeah, no, it was definitely, I mean, it definitely a lot to think about. And I think depending on what we see, and frankly, what I think we've seen in the short treks with Pike shows a lot of promise for what kind of successful direction they might take in a series should they, choose to go down that road.
Yeah, and also some of the characters that have been in the short treks, well, mostly that one with the engineered lady who had the test. Obviously, they're gonna see the audience reaction. She might become, the Tilly of the Enterprise. The cadet who becomes, grows on the show on that crew, because we never really know Pike's full crew except for comics and books, and that's not really canon.
Speaking
Yeoman
of this,
Colt.
speaking of the short treks, though, how do people feel about the teaser for the Mean Girls or the Mean Treks episode that we're about to get?
It doesn't look like the Picard tie-in we were expecting.
No, it's gonna be
is
from the
that what we
perspective-
expect for Children of Mars?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's what everyone's been assuming.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, when I saw those teasers, I was like, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I'm willing to give them benefit of the doubt.
See, and here's the
What I
interesting
think's
thing.
gonna happen.
A lot of people, I've actually been seeing a lot of people go, well, first of all, what is this? Why are we watching Mean Treks? And then it occurred to quite a few people, and I haven't really been seeing this spread around like other stuff usually does, but this reminds me of this looks more like a backstory episode for Tilly more than anything.
Well, the Children of Mars is supposed to tie into Picard. They've already said that it is a lead into.
Did
do
they
we actually know that?
Because
George?
they also said that these two animated short treks. They also said these two animated short treks were supposed to tie in to Lower Decks and the Nickelodeon show.
Right, which means the
maybe they still do.
didn't.
We don't know.
Right, but they did say this
Not
ties in.
directly, at least.
My theory is that there's obviously like racism happening among the kids on Mars, and so.
But that's nothing new. We saw it in the way Spock was treated as a kid in every.
But what I'm wondering though is
we've seen him as a
if
kid.
that takes place, if during the episode, all the refugees that Picard brings to Mars, and the only reason I believe that from
did we
Picard
see
trailer,
a Romulan though in this teaser?
We did not.
I didn't.
The girl that was being teased was alien, but certainly not Romulan.
No. What I'm saying is they have to deal with their issues, and then all of a sudden these Romulan refugees come down to Mars. That could be part of the tie-in.
Except we don't see any Romulans in the teasers, so
not in the trailer.
I don't think this is going. Go ahead.
Well, in the trailer for Picard, you see all these what look like the description Geordi was given for all these rescue ships, all swarming over Mars. So it seems like that's
but that doesn't equal Romulans. If the rescue ships are being built at Utopia Planitia, we're seeing everything before Romulans arrive.
Oh, that's true, because they said they weren't just rescuing Romulans; it was all the inhabited civilized worlds in the path of the explosion.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, I mean, it's not saying that it's not, but we're not seeing any indication that there's a direct connection.
Right. The Blue Girl could be one of the planets that the rescue armada took because it would have hit, the Horus wave would have hit their world or whatever. And, they're suddenly among humans and stuff. That could be it too, the tie-in.
I still think that there's a pretty good chance this is Tilly backstory.
I don't.
I don't think it's going to be what we're expecting.
This is too far ahead, and it's in the 24th century because they said this is a direct thing.
I mean, because it reminds, because that whole thing of her being the girl from her childhood, the
It seems
mycelial
similar, son, but
spores.
look up in the wiki. They give you a description. The Picard, the Children of Mars is supposed to lead us right into Picard. That's kind of how they describe it.
Who's
It's
they?
Yeah,
Like, we've
okay,
assumed this,
Wiki.
but
I don't trust Wiki as far as I
Press
can
X
throw
for
Wiki.
doubt.
Yeah, I don't trust the Wiki at all because Wikis can be edited. by
the wikis
anybody.
of the wikis of episode descriptions for almost every show I look up are usually 100% correct. I've never seen one that was wrong.
I mean, supposedly, Kurtzman said that it's a prequel to Star Trek Picard, but that can mean a lot of different things.
I know, but going all the way back to Tilly, it doesn't make sense to just go out of your way to say that it's a prequel to Picard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see a strong Tilly connection here either, but
I'm thinking it's probably one of the Picard's crew
It has a
people.
similar. It's a short teaser. You see things that remind you of something else. I think it has something to do with the refugees that have been being brought, and they having to get along with humans, whether it's Romulan or one of the other races.
I'm more inclined to believe that, but that it's tangential to Picard, rather than,
and now I think I understand why, unless they show it in a flashback on Picard itself, I'm starting to understand why they went out of their way to give liberties to the comic to make it, the Odyssey class and all that. We do know that they have a live action uniform for him to wear for something, whether it's this one, which a lot of people thought it was this one, but we may not actually see the ship. So he might beam down, see how things are going or something.
For some reason, I doubt you're going to see Picard in this episode. I think what it is going to set up kind of the world in which Picard takes place, rather than,
right.
I just don't think you'll see Picard in children's.
Yeah, I think the actual uniform that they did is probably going to be for flashbacks whenever we go to Picard itself.
I agree. I don't see them having time to throw it into this one. Well, the only way to know is to wait and see.
I think we're making a lot of assumptions off of things that we don't have a full picture of yet. We can speculate,
I don't think they're going to give
but
us more information.
I think we're jumping to a lot of conclusions for things that we want to see, rather than things that are actually presented to us.
Well, I'm just going by the description they gave, and the fact that they have a live action
Mean Trek. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but they come together. We see them holding hands right at the end of the.
So they can bully the same person.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll put a pin in that one as well and see what happens in January when it finally comes out, and we'll see how close some of our guesses were. Okay, moving on to our next topic. We're veering back into fan film land and talking about what we learned this past week about the Axanar fan film of a fan film, Jonathan Lane's Interlude, which is supposedly takes place kind of between Prelude and Axanar, and tells the story of why there's no Admiral Ramirez in Axanar. Of course, in real life, we know that the actor Tony Todd left the project because his issues with Alec Peters' mismanagement of the project and donor funds, but they wanted to come up with an explanation in universe, and this is Jonathan Lane's attempt to do so. They did their first shoot at the Ares Studios on the set of the Axanar Bridge, and we learned this week in Fan Film Factor that the crew there ended up damaging a nearly $5,000 green screen owned by Axanar director Paul Jenkins, and by well, we'll talk about the details on that, but basically they ruined it, and so now Jonathan Lane has gone back to the well with his donors and asked for them to cough up the $5,000 or the vast majority
he raised
of the
most
money.
of it. He just didn't raise all of it.
They raised a fraction of it. Most of it is still coming from donors.
What did they
So-
do to ruin it? Did they cover it in biscuit gravy or something?
No, the floor.
So
The,
yeah,
the
I mean,
floor had all this grease and
here's what happened. In Star Trek, obviously, when you always show what's on the main view screen, and typically that is done by hanging a green screen behind the opening where the view screen is, and then you composite whatever the green screen image is going to be in post-production. And for some reason, even though Jonathan knew and his two directors knew that they were going to be shooting shots on the bridge of the view screen, no one of them thought to bring a green screen. And so when they got to Ares Studios, they saw one lying around, which, P.S., why would you leave a $5,000 green screen lying around? But they did. And so they thought, hey, we'll just use that one, even though we don't know who it belongs to. And then they decided to hang it in a way that was completely impractical because it was a much bigger green screen than the width of the view screen that needed to be set aside. And they shoved the rest of it underneath the physical set where there was a lot of dirt and dust and grease that damaged permanently the green screen. And in the images that have been shot, I don't know if you have any of those available, Justin. They just have the green screen wadded up and laying on the floor, and it's like that was pretty irresponsible. And of course, Jonathan's pitch to his donors is, I'm taking full responsibility for this, and of course we need to pay Paul Jenkins back for his ruined green screen, but I want you to give me your
Why
money.
are you having them pay for it and not out of your own pocket?
Well, because theoretically he has nothing left in his pocket. So again,
he
and
said he had
he's been
$500.
So he's not taking responsibility for it. He's asking.
No, he paid
fans
500.
to.
that's
Which isn't that
1/10
much.
of its cost.
No, I know.
George.
I'm just saying he did pay something.
Yeah, but it's just, her question though is like, are you really taking full responsibility when what you're doing is turning around? And thank you, Justin, for putting that up. That's what it looked like. And every green screen I'm aware of.
Grinch.
What's that?
Someone murdered the Grinch.
Yeah. Now, even though I sound very judgmental about this, I'm the first to admit that on a set, all number of things can go wrong. Accidents do happen and so forth. But I also believe, especially on when you're working on a low budget film, you have to plan out these things because you're trying to save money. And if you're going to be using view screenshots, to have gone to this set and not have had a green screen ready, it's to me is like the height of bad planning. And given the fact, Jonathan's never made a film before, so fine, I'm not going to cast stones there. But his two directors, they're both professionals. They work in filmmaking and television in real life all the time. And they're the ones who did the shot list. They knew they had on their shot lists that they talk about, we did these shot lists, that they were going to be shooting, view screenshots. And for them to not have thought out that they need a green screen is just asking for trouble, because you get there and go, oh, we forgot one, and but there's one, so we'll use that one. And that's the real problem here, I think, is that just really bad planning on their part, which could be excusable if you were a regular fan film, but is inexcusable when you're dealing with two professionals, people who do this for a living. Thank you, Justin, for the fire risk on the with all the chords below. But
my problem with this was the fact that he's asking for donor support on a mistake that he should have had insurance to cover, because that was a whole spill for the money.
Well, he made a whole spiel about why insurance wouldn't have made a difference. I'm not saying he's right, but he did mention that.
Yeah,
they only cover injuries and stuff like that.
Well, that's not true. Production insurance can cover whatever you want it to cover. He chose to not have it cover any.
Okay.
That was a choice on his part in the kind of insurance that he bought, not a restriction of all production insurance. You can also choose what your deductible is going to be, and and granted, sometimes there are high deductibles. The higher the deductible you're willing to pay, the lower the premium is going to be on the insurance. But again, you know, if you're going to claim you're going to get insurance, you better be able to have the deductible ready in case something goes wrong. And it appeared that he didn't. So, you know, it's not like somehow he planned and then everything went wrong. He could have avoided this.
I mean, the simple simple set supervisor to watch the idiot that hung the green screen in the first place like that. That would have prevented this.
I would love to know who his first assistant director was, because the first AD, their job is really to, ensure the safety of everything that's on that set. Making sure that stuff isn't, in people's ways that they could trip over and things like that. So that's the first AD's job. I don't know who they had as a first AD, but if it was not a professional, then that was yet another problem with the planning for this.
I mean, did he think this was Alex green screen that he trashed like this? I mean, did he not think to ask on whose it was, or if it was okay to use it, or I don't understand the logic behind how such a big thing could have gotten so wrong.
The thing is, I'm not going to fault them for using a green screen that was there. I mean, it was there. It wasn't like locked away. It was there and viewable. And they're like, oh, we need a green screen, so we're going to use it. My problem is, why are you going to hang it in such a way that you have to wad it up and shove it underneath a set?
Especially, it had grommets. They could have put nails on top of that set, and they could have folded that green screen up and kept it off that nasty floor. And that's another thing. Why the hell didn't Alex have that floor clean before he went to build sets? I mean, seriously.
Well, I mean, the dirt that was underneath the set was from the set itself, so it's not like it was there. They just built a set on top of it. It was a consequence of this of the set being there. So.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of failures here in terms of planning, but to me, it goes
including
back to
whoever the hell decided to leave a $5,000+ green screen where it is.
Yeah,
on top of a power cord, and a probable live power cord at that. I mean, did they not see the fact that it was getting dirty in oil? I mean, come on here. Common sense would have prevailed, I would have hoped.
Well, when you look at the pictures, I'm not saying this to excuse it, but when you look at the pictures on his blog, you can only tell all that dirt and stuff happened when you flip it over. They probably weren't seeing that it was doing that.
But, right, but the point, though, George, is green screens are not cheap, and you don't wad them up and stick them under sets. You just don't. Even if it was pristine under there, that's not the way you treat a green screen. It is
right. But when I'm saying Justin's question about how he didn't see it, because you couldn't tell until they flipped it over. I'm not saying that it was that excuses what they did. I'm just saying that's why they didn't immediately notice.
Okay, yeah, but see, my thing, the thing had grommets on it. There was no reason to shove it under anything. Somebody with a half a brain of competence would have just hung it and then kept it off the floor. I mean, I would love to know who caused this. I would love to know why Jonathan Lane is protecting them.
Well, because it is his responsibility. I don't disagree with Jonathan saying I'm not going to name names, because what good does that do? It would have made him look even worse, actually, if he was scapegoating somebody. And there actually is someone who posted something saying I was one of the people who hung it that way. So it's not like people are trying to hide. The point is that that this is just the sign of really bad planning. And when you have two professionals in the director's roles who didn't think out that they needed a green screen, that's a big lapse.
That's why I don't understand. I'm like, a simple shot plan should have been like, oh, we need a green screen for this. Hey, go get the
that's
material.
Like when you're doing a shot list. For those who don't know, one of the things a director does, usually with a cinematographer, is they plan out literally every shot they're going to shoot during during a day, a shoot
what
day.
Costume you need, what equipment you need to have.
Yeah, but that's not really their job. Their job is just the shot list. They've got costumers and stuff who do that. But basically saying we're going to do a medium shot of the view screen. They know they're going to be shooting the view screen. If they've actually done a shot list, they know they're going to be shooting a view screen. And if they know they're going to be shooting a view screen, then they know they need a green screen. And so for them to have shown up on set without a green screen and then turn around and try to find one and then hang it up wrong is just unprofessional. You know, it's not childish. You know, it's like the people who hung it up were just people who didn't, they were volunteers. I don't blame them for that. I blame the two directors who are professionals who did not think this out, who arrived on a set.
Who were supposed to have Jonathan back.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't tell anyone we need a green screen.
If there is one constant in this group of people, it is a lack of thought.
Well, yeah, because the blame goes around.
And a willingness to ask other people for money.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's really what it comes down to. You know, I mean, but you know, to his credit, Jonathan is able to persuade people to give him more money. I mean, they're pretty close. I don't know what the last I saw, there were like $1,000 something away from you know, raising the money to replace the screen. But you know, so he was able to make his case. And on one hand, you can make the argument like, look, if people are willing to support him, you know, they're adults, they're making decisions about how they want to you know, where they're putting their money, and obviously they believe in him, they believe in the project, and so they're willing to see past the error and say, I want to see this, that I'm going to give you, you know, another $20-$50 or whatever, and you know, so you complete it.
Yeah, there's more power to them. I mean, you know, they want to give it to them, that's fine. You know, yeah, we may think it's wrong for them to have to ask for money, but if we want to give them money for it, you know, that's their prerogative. We can't tell people not to do it. We can dislike it, which is let's make sure they don't get us wrong in this. Yeah, we don't like the fact that this has happened. And, you know, there's a lot of things that went wrong with this, and at the end of the day, yeah, you know, the two professionals should have had Jonathan Lane's back. Instead, now Jonathan has to deal with this, which another unneeded expense because people weren't doing their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways it was the perfect storm of a lot of problems because they set themselves up for something like this to happen and to derail the project. Because if they had gotten the right kind of production insurance, you know, he basically got only enough insurance to protect against you know, injury, but not against you know, damage to equipment or property or whatever.
And I'm really surprised Alex.
And so he went the cheap route, and now he's paying the price for it, but he's making other people pay the price for it, really, for him.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I like about it is for the simple fact that he thinks that he has to make everybody else pay for his error in judgment.
Well, what else? I'm going to play devil's advocate here. What else is he going to do at this point?
Well, he's lucky Paul is an understanding person and just letting him, you know, work it out.
Well, understanding to the degree that you're going to pay me my $4,700.
Yeah.
It's easy to be understanding when you're, you know, when you know that you can demand that.
Well, I mean, he can turn around and he could be, you know, he's completely throw Alec under the bus for this. I mean, you know, he's like, Lane's
that's
lucky.
not his style. I mean, that's not what he's not going to do anything.
Well, no,
like that.
but I mean,
but you know, but my point is though, what other choice does Jonathan have at this point? He doesn't have $5,000 in his pocket. So what else is he going to do? He's going to ask people for money. So he did, and they responded. So
I hope he has a valuable lesson now if he does any other projects going forward. Production insurance saves your butt. Get it. Cover it. You never know when something like this will happen.
It's always possible that, I mean, I've had some kind of claim on production insurance on virtually everything I've worked on. And thank God. So to go in and hoping it won't happen is irresponsible. Because something always happens, you know, like
no fire, you know, someone.
Well, even minor things, you know, I had someone spill something on a table, and you wouldn't think that's a big deal, except it was a very expensive antique table.
Yeah.
And you know, we had to take care of it. So, and that was a relatively straightforward kind of accident. So, you know, to go into a project like this and hope that something like that doesn't happen is just irresponsible. Particularly when, you know, he was told in advance, shit happens, you need to be ready for it, and he wasn't.
Didn't Rob Graves run into something a little like this insurance problem back in the day when he was doing Hidden Frontier? They were worried about him doing productions in his home or something like that. I remember that being a thing.
I don't think it was a thing that was a thing. I mean, I think that was some people asking about it, but it was never a professional production.
Okay.
And, it just, it was so completely amateur. Plus it was, it wasn't trying to be, a big production, it didn't have real sets. It didn't have, so as it was basically kind of a hobby thing, and probably any insurance stuff would have been handled under his homeowner's insurance.
Yeah, for some reason I thought there was an issue around that. It's been
Not
so
that I
long
recall.
ago.
I don't think you're seeing a parallel between the two, because they're just such
It's been so
completely
long
different.
ago. Yeah.
Different
Okay.
things. Okay, we've probably belabored this point too much. Unless anyone has a last word, question, anything. All right, let's move on to another trailer that dropped this week, and that was the WW84 Wonder Woman trailer that came out in all of its resplendent neon-colored glory this week. What did people think? I know Ross, you were particularly giddy about it. You want to start us off?
She was lassoing and swinging from freaking lightning.
Riding the lightning, baby. We're gonna hear that on television.
Holy crap, that alone just blew my mind. The armor she had at the very end was gorgeous and beautiful. And the question of how Steve came back is definitely going to be one of the biggest ones of the whole of this whole movie. And just the amount of questions the trailer raises, while at the same time capturing my attention and building my excitements. 84 is a special year for me, considering it's the year of my birth, and seems like all the retro goes back to 84. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be incredible.
I love the platforms on her boots. It was like, because I have to tell you, I was in college in 1984, and for me, and I totally get that this is a generational thing, to me, the weird fashion and the weird colors that we saw in this trailer just brought back really bad memories for me. And I'm willing to overlook it if the story is great, and I'm hoping it will be great. I
want to know how he's alive.
Well, I have some theories about that, but I don't want to say them out loud because there's spoilers.
I've heard a few good ones as well.
But I think there are reasons. But I did love the trash can part.
Yeah,
she's talking about this is art, and he looks at the trash can. She's like, that's just a trash can.
I like the reversing of the fact that she's showing him around modern world. I think he's either an illusion by Maxwell Lord, which is played by Pedro Pascal from the Mandalorian. But it's also possible. I also heard rumors about like one of the goddesses temporarily lets her be reunited with him as a gift or something for whatever. Could be any of them. Could be Aphrodite, whoever. I don't think it's gonna be permanent, because when you get to the modern age, and she's still grieving over him when Bruce Wayne antagonizes her. So clearly, he's not gonna stick around. But we can still enjoy it.
That could be easily retconned.
It can be retconned.
I mean, because that Justice League would open. No, let's not go there. Let's not go there. No.
Yes. I like the Justice League movie.
What I
liked it. What's up?
Are we all done? Justin, did we lose you?
I think we might have lost.
Well, the video's still playing. If it freezes, we know he's gone.
Okay. Son, do you want to weigh in while Justin?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
can now.
Okay, sorry. My mic got messed up. But she was riding freaking lightning.
Riding the lightning!
I mean, when have we seen that? Never.
She was...
Well, one of the theories I've heard is that what we're actually seeing is something we're not seeing, which is an invisible plane.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, that I believe, because I heard it on the set, something that makes me feel that's her invisible plane, and somehow it was sent off on its own, and she's retrieving it or whatever.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Like the idea
I
of
actually like the idea.
lightning better.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, as long as there's a lightning storm going on. I mean,
Sure.
She's a
Son,
goddess.
did you get a chance to
she's
see
she's a
the trailer?
demigoddess. She could summon lightning if she wants to.
I've seen the trailer, and
Is this a hot girl?
Let her finish. Go ahead, son.
Oh, good.
I've been watching people react to the trailer has been weird, considering the spheres I run in. And you have people on the. Okay, I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Come on and say it.
Okay, so these really strangely social justice activisty people who seem to be anti-patriarchy for everything didn't say shit about this trailer for 3 days. For 3 days. And the moment they said anything about this trailer, it was, oh, her boots are too sexual. Fuck. What the fuck?
I just thought they were an unfortunate fashion choice.
You people complain about the strong, independent women
my
that
God.
men go and
Oh
see.
my God.
And every man here says they want to go and see this movie with a strong female lead, and your complaint is her boots are too sexy.
Oh my God.
The fuck
Yeah, I
is
don't
wrong with
I don't know
you?
what to make of that one.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my God, no.
Okay, I think that's a good place to
Oh my-
finish off on Wonder Woman 84. Let's go to our next topic, which is about another icon of DC Comics, and that is about Superman. We saw in an article this week in let me see where that was. Forbes. In Forbes online, they went on about why Warner Brothers is having such a problem figuring out what to do in the DC Cinematic Universe with Superman. They have not been able to ever get him really right after Christopher Reeve. And even with Christopher Reeve, you know, once you got past Superman 2, it went downhill pretty quick. But in the first two Superman movies, we saw a really, I mean, he's still the iconic live action Superman that we've seen ever.
That's why Superman.
Go ahead, George.
I was going to say that's why Superman Returns is an official Donnerverse next step, but they ignore 3 and 4 because they pick up from what happened with 2 and him and Lois.
Right. But of course, the problem there is it was too slavishly devoted to the Richard Donner versions to its own detriment. Instead of, you know, really finding its own voice, it tried to replicate somebody else's. My theory.
Well, they were trying to honor Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner's vision of. But anyways, yeah, that's true. So, I'm sorry. Were you done with what you were saying when I cut you off? Sorry about that.
No, I was pretty much done. Just the idea that of the DC Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they've only been able to find a voice for Wonder Woman that translates well into film, which is of course hilarious because in comics, Wonder Woman's been the shakiest of the Trinity. She's, you know, had her comic canceled and then rebooted so many times in the last 60 years, whereas Superman and Batman have, you know, they've had their ups and downs, but they've never been
that's because of the generational attitude towards women and and all the different movements. She was one way in the 60s, 70s. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
but this is less about her than it is about the fact that, you know, Warner Brothers, DC can't seem to figure out how to put these characters, and probably more Superman than Batman, because we've seen some successful, Batman iterations over the years.
We've also seen some pretty serious flops.
Sure, but that's less about how well to translate it than just picking the wrong director or the wrong writer. I mean, we've seen enough successful versions of Batman on through the years that we just haven't seen that same sort of record of success in Superman.
Well, DC's been doing really well since they decided to step away from trying to create a connected universe. Aquaman and Shazam were very good. I thoroughly enjoyed those. So
but they did make the in-universe references, which is just fine.
they did, but the point of those movies wasn't to tie them in to a team up.
Well,
The
right.
point of those movies was to show off those characters in the same world, yes, but that wasn't the focus like Batman and Superman was.
Right.
While Superman, we had Man of Steel, but that was Zack Snyder trying to do the Dark Knight treatment for Superman, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but then he immediately tried to carry that into Batman versus Superman, and Superman's journey kind of got interrupted along the way, and then it was right into Justice League, and they had to bring him back from the dead, and it was a mess.
Martha.
So I think if they tried to do what they did with Aquaman and Shazam, if they just try to make a Superman centric movie where it's just about him and not trying to tie him into everything else, I think they might do a better job next time around.
I don't know. I feel like that's what they tried to do with Zack Snyder, and it still failed. I mean, I think it's less about not connecting it to other stuff than it is about just having the wrong idea of what Superman is and what he represents in a way that can be relevant to modern audiences.
Man of Steel was a very gloomy movie.
It was gloomy and just
wrong actor and the wrong suit.
No, I think the actor was fine. The actor was fine. It made some very weird departures from the classic Superman story that I think were just mistakes. Like Pa Kent telling him, "No, don't save people."
Yeah.
Like
that
the whole
Batman
point of
right
the
there.
Kents is that they infused this alien with an actual real sense of humanity and responsibility. And instead we get a character who says, no, don't do that. And that just sends completely the wrong message.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that either.
I will say I liked how they made the Kryptonians more alien. How they had a different atmosphere that they breathed, and that Clark had a hard time when he was first adjusting to Earth, as did the rest of Zod and all of his people when they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that definitely was a nice aspect, and it really builds on the John Byrne version of Superman in the comics when they rebooted him after
especially with
Crisis,
because
the Kryptonians in that were like. They were super alien and they were not good people.
No, they were just still
we see glimpses of that in a lot of some of the newer Superman stuff still. I think. Yeah. Sure. Supergirl definitely mirrors some of that as she explores a bit more of who her parents actually were through the series.
Mm-hmm. But, I think, one of the things we're seeing in Supergirl and in Superman on television in general is a better take on Superman, one that is more optimistic, one that is more about values and humanity. And in general, I think they pulled it off pretty well on television.
Well, except for they watered down Superman when he's in crossovers too much for my taste, just to make him not overshadow. They make him into like a I-beam shooting.
They did the Brandon Roth Superman. That's pretty spot on. They did him really good.
We haven't seen him actually take on the baddies. He's fighting the other Superman, but it was a good fight. But I mean, we haven't seen the full potential yet. But I mean, I just say every time Superman by Tyler Ocean has been on, somewhat the same as Supergirl, and they're more powerful on their own. But when they get into a group, it's like what happened with Justice League Unlimited. They water him down. He made the excuse one.
No, I totally agree with you on that. I think that definitely when it comes to their powers, there's all kinds of inconsistencies about. Sometimes they're really powerful, and other times, some run-of-the-mill villain can defeat them. And I've always had a problem with that. It's one of the inherent
kryptonite modifies their personality.
Yeah, I mean, although Red Kryptonite did that all the time in the comics, so that's not that weird. But I think just the inconsistent nature of the powers as they're portrayed on screen, and has always been a problem with Superman and in the comics as well. But I think the focus on, and you know, in Supergirl, I think what really worked in her early seasons really well was sort of this approach she had that was very idealistic and very, you know, she wasn't battling supervillains so much as she was battling super cynicism in the world, and that kind of example was very inspiring to the world. And I think that's the kind of flavor that works well for these really huge superpowered characters, when, you know, when it's not really just their powers that have to be challenged, but the dilemmas that they find themselves in because they're such role models and so powerful, where, you know, their superpowers by themselves aren't always the best way to defeat an enemy.
I'm still in the middle of season 3 right now, and it's a really compelling story specifically because of that. Because she's not really facing a supervillain, she's facing a turn of ideas in people. And how are you can't punch down bigotry,
right?
So
exactly.
How do you defeat it?
Did you notice, Carlos, and a lot of podcasters point this out, because they always got to make it look like Supergirl's a little more powerful than him. That scene where they were draining their heat vision to keep that force field going.
Yeah.
And who's the first one that passes out? Of course, Superman. And then she lasts about 10 seconds longer. But they always got to do that on these CW shows to show she's more powerful than him. And it gets a little in your face because it's very consistent.
She beat him down at the end of season 2.
Yeah, she did.
That was a knockdown, drag-out brawl, and she beat him. He wasn't holding back.
It's not the fact that she's able to beat him. It's just the way that they're really making the audience in your face about it.
Well, but what's the issue there? What's the issue there, George? I mean, you know, the only other alternative is that he beats her down. So then you could make the same criticism of Superman. So, you know, it's not like you really have an alternative.
Sun has her.
I'm curious how they're going to handle.
Yeah, Sun.
Well, yeah, good.
I've really been wanting to say this for a while because you guys have been going all over the place and not mentioned it once, except for Ross. You sort of brought it up. It seems more like a good Superman for this age would be something more like the idealistic Superman that we had out of Dean Cain in Lois and Clark.
Well, that's this guy's life.
I think I addressed that quite specifically.
Don't remember you mentioning Lois and Clark.
I didn't mention Lois and Clark specifically. I said in general, TV has handled the presentation of Superman as an idealistic, you know, role model better than the movies have.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder wanted to kill her off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the CW Superman.
I get the feeling he wanted to make Injustice.
He did. He did.
Well, the CW Superman is good, son.
I just think that should be the blueprint for a Superman movie at this point, because
I totally agree.
We've done the dark theme and it didn't work. We've done the pseudo going bad and that flopped, and now you've got all these people going, well, what's left? Well, what we've always had of Superman.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, son.
I think Smallville did the best job. I think Smallville did the best job, even though he wasn't in his suit, as far as his general optimism and attitude.
Well, and Smallville lasted 11 seasons, so that should tell you something.
Yep.
I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time.
And he always had that optimism and hope, you know, when he was, you know, trying to remind himself that his destiny is one way, or he was tired of people telling him, and then he finally embraced it. But there's another reason why I have that problem I was talking about with what they did in this crossover with him and Lois. But again, it's something I can live with. But
All right.
There's
Well,
a
we
low
are
peak.
out of time. We're actually quite a bit over. So I hope you don't mind if I move us along to what we're watching this week. We'll just go round robin and just let us know
Sure.
quick what you've been watching, and we'll wrap up the show. Let's start with Justin this week.
As I mentioned earlier, The Expanse. Oh, yeah, that was a great show. I just started watching on Carlos's and Sean's recommendation.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, they've been kind of nudging me to do it for a while now, and I finally broke down how to do it, and I fucking love the show. It's great. It is fantastic, and I don't see myself turning it off anytime soon. So I mean, this is like something that I should have done a long time ago. But I'm glad I waited because it makes it all the better to watch it now and to get hyped up to watch the rest of the season. So yeah, it's the new season so far is pretty dang good. But yeah, so far that's the only thing I'm watching. I want to finish up this season and then I'll find something else.
Cool.
Let's see who's next. Ross.
All right, so I've finally started watching Mandalorian. I might be here on Sunday.
Yay!
Yeah,
We'd love to have you on.
We need you in your eyebrow.
Of course, I'm still following Ruby and Arizona Circle on Rooster Teeth, both excellent shows. And Game Awards was yesterday. Had a lot of fun watching that with Son. A lot of good surprises, a lot of upsets. Disco Elysium took the most awards at the show. Everyone is expecting Death Stranding to sweep. And I believe that's about... the Black Pants Legion released their latest Tex Talks Battletech. They covered the Blackjack this time. So a lot of fun.
Cool.
Son, how about you?
Okay, so if you're still paying for Netflix, there's a new documentary series out called "The Movies That Made Us."
Ooh.
This is
You
built
last
off
week,
of
I think, right?
This is built off of the Toys That Made Us documentary series, and the first four documentaries are Dirty Dancing, Home Alone, Ghostbusters, and Die Hard. I've seen the first two already, and the documentaries actually go through the production hell of the movies more than anything.
Nice.
Cool.
It's very very heartwarming and inspiring, and they will make you cry.
Aww.
Watching Home Alone. I never had something make me cry and then in not even 3 seconds make me burst out laughing, but the Home Alone one did it.
Wow, I'm gonna check that out.
And if you are interested in Christmas movies, Netflix still has their original The Christmas Chronicles. Kurt Russell is my Santa Claus.
Cool.
George, how about you? What have you been watching this week?
The Watchmen, and they got one more episode, but holy crap, the last one. Woo.
Yeah,
You
it
seen it yet,
was
Carl?
intense. Yes, I have seen it.
All I'm
Yeah,
gonna
they
say
have
is-
this Sunday is the finale, right? Season finale?
Yep, this new update to Dr. Manhattan has been awesome.
Yeah, it's a complete reinvention of, while still respecting the original comic, it picks it up and takes it in a whole new direction. I thought it was great.
I love the whole way that they did the being in different time spots at the same time, and how he ended up courting her, and that was, you know what I'm talking about. It was just great. It was the whole conversations, usually just nothing but dialogue for a long time, might get boring to some people, but this was so fascinating with how they handled time powers when it comes to this kind of thing. It was great. And
They made
let alone the
Manhattan
action.
the Prophet, huh?
They made what?
No, he was always
Made Dr. Manhattan the Prophet.
Well, I mean, when you can see the
Non-linear
future,
time.
of course.
He was
They
always
made him
been
more
that
than a
way.
prophet.
No,
Well,
in
let's put
fact,
this
they
in the title.
actually kind of uh, uh, made his powers irrelevant in the way that that this was created. So it was him not being a prophet that was actually the dramatic imperative in this episode.
The title of the episode was "A God Walks into a Bar,"
Yeah,
and he did. It was great. So
yeah, it was pretty amazing. We finally got to see a lot of Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, in this episode.
and they tied all the things together.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So if you haven't been watching Watchmen, this is the episode that makes the whole season up to this point worth it for sure. What else, George? Anything else?
I think that's everybody.
Except for
Did
me.
you already leave?
Yeah, Joe had to leave.
You.
Yeah, Joe had to leave. So for me, of course, I watched Expanse as well. Yes, you know, I've been excited about this for months. Very happy with what I saw, so I won't belabor the point. Watchmen, we just talked about. And of course, his Dark Materials is also in its last 2 weeks, and it has gotten better and better every episode.
Yeah,
You may recall that back when it started, I was complaining about the actress who was playing Lyra and how I thought she wasn't like totally there. Not true anymore. She has grown into that role, no problem. It's
cool.
It's this great combination of darkness and light that I think totally works in a way that it didn't in the film version. So really great to see that. And I'm all about the Armored Bear, Yorick Burnison, who's
I was just going to ask you about them.
Yeah, he steals every scene he's in. He steals every scene he's in.
Nice.
And then also this week we saw the season finale of Castle Rock, which was a very satisfying season finale. Better than some of the parts in the middle of the season. It ended strong. Tied up some loose ends that were left from the end of season 1. Was brought together at the end of season 2, which I thought they wove in very well together. And they actually leave Castle Rock for an entire ending segment that is very chilling. And again, I'm not a big Stephen King fan, but this series totally works for me. So if you haven't checked it out yet, it's all on Hulu. Wednesday is we've had the season finale, so you can binge the whole thing now if you want.
Cool.
All right, I think that brings us to the end of...
Yeah, one more thing. George's GoFundMe.
Yes, that's right. As you may recall in our program note earlier, we are raising some money for George to help with some of his expenses as he prepares to and will be undergoing his chemotherapy for pancreatic cancer. Justin has it up there. There is a link to it, the GoFundMe, on the Real Super Geeks page on Facebook. Please, if you can spare anything, it would help to keep our pal George going as he enters this battle for his health. And I know it would mean a lot to him to get that kind of support from...
Yeah, I've been overwhelmed with what Joe's been able to put together with his campaign. So I've been really grateful and surprised. And
thanks to Joe Diaz for organizing all of this. I mean,
thanks, Joe.
The support.
Well, thanks to all you guys for pimping it.
The support, I mean, it's been incredible. It's just exploded in the last 48 hours. I mean, it's been incredible to watch it. And I mean, it just truly shows what happens whenever people in this community pull together for a good cause.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of the fact that as riven as fan bases can be these days, that people can still come together in some really positive ways. And I'm sorry it had to take this to happen, obviously, George, but I'm really gratified to see that people's hearts are still in the right place. And
oh man, I showed people in the hospital, nurses and stuff. They were like, "Wow, you got some good friends out there."
And here's another thing, Jonathan Lane even donated to this, and we want to reach out and thank him for that. And all of our differences for him to actually care enough to do that.
I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you.
Yeah,
Justin.
because Jonathan pointed out something like, I'm still a member of the community for all these things, and he was cool about it.
I mean,
appreciated it.
at the end of the day, we're all geeks and fans, no matter what side of the fence we're on. I mean, we may not have the same views, but whenever we come together when it counts.
Yeah.
Very true. So for you who are watching at home, the way that these things work that's super important is, we don't expect, especially this time of year, that people have a lot of extra cash in mind, but support can be a lot more than just cash. A lot of the support that people can give is to just share it with other people so that they know and they can contribute, even if it's a small amount. If it goes wide, all those small amounts add up, and we're seeing that happen. So thank you to those of you who, yeah, go ahead, George.
Well, a lot of the people who donated, I don't know who they are. They could be from any of the communities. I just don't recall the names. And for all I know, they're people where something was shared twice, and they were like 5 degrees of separation from anybody I know of from some group in Star Trek or something. I don't know, but whoever has been doing it, like, I bottom of my heart, I thank you anyways, just for wanting to help out someone who's in a situation that's not awesome.
I know Robert Netta shared it to the big Star Trek group.
Good.
That's right.
Good.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
He got messaged me asking me if he thought it'd be okay. I said I thought it would be. So he got with Joe, and they got it shared out there. So I'm sure that kind of helped too.
Yeah, that's great. When you think about where we all were, 2 years ago in the middle of all the Axanar mess and, a lot of the bad blood that was back then, it's really reassuring to see that people can see past that. And, George, I think it's really a testament to you in the dedication that you brought to this podcast, just to fostering communication and community, amongst people who sometimes see themselves on opposite sides of issues in geekdom. I think it's a really strong vote in confidence of what you've brought and contributed to this community. So I'm glad people are responding that way.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I just can't believe it. Everybody's coming together for the right reasons. So, let's see where this goes. Hopefully
for sure.
Start something that kind of helps heal the community.
Yep.
Great. And again, there's a link on the Real Super Geeks Facebook page. Please share with other people. It means a lot.
And I'll be on as much as I can, barring like how I feel for all these things. Like tonight I was feeling pretty good, so I was able to do this. But
I'm glad you did. Thanks, George.
Yes.
I'll be around for the Mandalorian. I don't know if I'm getting released this time tomorrow or Sunday, but either way I'll be on for the Mandalorian.
Well, so. I know we appreciate your joining us by phone this time, so you're not letting it get in the way of being able to continue to contribute to the podcast. So thanks.
Especially considering it's almost 4:00 in the morning at the hospital he's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to remember too, I rest a lot during the day, so it's not like I lack sleep. So
I'm glad you're getting some rest.
Yeah.
Not the you lacking sleep, it's the you talking and keeping other hospital patients up, maybe.
Nobody can hear me. I have my own room.
Oh, cool. Okay, so final program note before we sign off. We have Mandalicious, our Mandalorian after show, coming up Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific. So join us for them. We have a lot to talk about with this week's episode, which is an extra long episode that dropped just earlier today, and some interesting opinion articles that appeared online this week about where the Mandalorian is heading and, the fate of Baby Yoda and lots of other things I think will be interesting points of discussion on Sunday night. So please join us then. And Ross, I hope you can join us as well. We love having your voice all the time. It'd be great to have it added to
your eyebrows.
Mandalorian, of course, the eyebrows of Dune, which, are super impressive wherever they appear.
I'm still bewildered by that.
Okay, any final words before we take off for the evening?
I think we got everything.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us on Super Geeks.
It's the holiday season, and if you don't hear it from your family or your friends, you'll hear it from me. Each and every one of you is loved and appreciated by just your being you.
Very true.
Very
Good,
wise
Sin.
words.
That sounded very,
Thanks, son.
very modern, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you.
I like it.
Okay, then that's it for this week. We'll see you next Friday, 10 p.m. Pacific, and of course Sundays at 9 for our Mandalorian after show. Thanks, everyone.
Peace out, people.
Clear.